I found this list of like song title ideas that I made in middle school, and I found a couple that I thought were like cool, and then I thought about Vaguely Human Figures, and I was like, wait a second, that's actually kind of fire. Like, I haven't like thought about that in so long, but yeah. And then so I was actually thinking more like thematically as well, like what the purpose of my book is, or like what the big themes are, like what the characters are dealing with. And I realized like a big theme for this book is kind of like losing a sense of who you are, or like losing an idea of like your existence within society, and kind of like becoming like hollow, or like becoming a version of yourself that is kind of like a silhouette of like who you are, but not really like having all the internal properties of that. And so I thought
Mm-hmm.
also about the book No Longer Human. And I was like, wait a second, I kind of want a
Yeah,
title like
that's
that.
right.
Yeah, I think that book was kind of influential to like this project as well in some ways. And so I think like a combination of seeing that title like in my notes app from like 5 years ago, and then also like thinking more thematically about what the purpose of the book is, was like kind of what helps me come up with the title. And I think in terms of the cover, I actually collaborated with my friend who does digital art. And so like initially I sort of wanted it to be like a big like winding piano, and like these like figurines, like, these like
Okay.
little people like kind of like running around on it. And it was supposed to be like kind of like representative of like the themes of the book, like music and composition, and like constantly like running between these versions of yourself and trying to like find who you are in this crazy world. I think over time it just kind of transformed into something else, where like my friend was like giving a lot of her input because she was working in a bookstore that summer, so she saw so many book covers, and she was like, yo, I just found these book covers that I think we could incorporate into your book cover. And so
Mm.
I think with this current one, let me just, with this one, I think like we kept like the piano going across, but then we also have like
Yeah.
the mirror frame, because there's like a mirror that a ghost lives in the book. And then there's like a treble clef as like the S. Just like a lot of really little detail. Like there's like a lamp here because the ghost in the book does travel through lamps and mirrors and reflective surfaces.
There's a lot of thought that goes into this.
Yeah, like we can have like, these cool like 80s sort of like halftone hands for like that vintage effect.
Mm.
So I think it was just kind of dumping all of the big themes and like defining features of the book onto like a page, and then deciding what to do with that. Well, I think that Mateo's story was like the most intuitive for me. He does a lot of like not good things in the book, but I think like at the core,
Okay.
like me and him are both very like immersed in our projects, like immersed in our own worlds, and like kind of really stuck in our heads type of people. And kind of like I think like a big point of the story for him was also like how he's like kind of like insecure almost, or like gets very personally offended when people criticize his music. And I think for a while I was kind
Mm.
of the same way with my writing, where like I thought that like what do those people know, like they don't know anything about me, like I'm the only one who truly understands the vision. And so like, but I feel like a lot of that just came from insecurity. Like he has a friend who knows a lot about music, and he like ultimately just ends up collaborating and like learning a lot from his friend. And I think this is like that's like a big thing, to not see other people as competition, but as like people I can learn from. Like I tend to be someone with like a lot of like big dreams, or like a lot of like huge projects that I want to like tackle. And I think I kind of wanted him to like have that sort of attitude, but I also wanted to turn everything up a notch and just like make it like more dramatic, and like make him more obsessive, and kind of get him to be like swept up in the currents of like his new life, or like this life like status and like superiority, like feeling like he's better than everyone, and kind of how that sort of ego boost can make you feel like invincible almost. But then like it's
Mhm.
sort of devastating to realize that at the end of the day you are as fragile as everybody else. And so I think that was like, it kind of came from like my experience and my perspective just like blown up a lot more. And then I think with August, like he's also someone with a lot of dreams, but I think his dreams come more from like a place of like wanting to support his family, like wanting to like stay alive, and like, not like be like homeless, I guess. Yeah, I think kind of like the big point of this for me was like more like the musical aspect, because I have like a really long history with music, just like because I played piano for 10 years and then I was in like my school band and orchestra and then I played like guitar and like songwriting, so I think music has just kind of been with me my entire life. Mostly it was kind of like based on like this idea of like creating some artistic thing or like being in an artistic space, especially because theater is so musical and August is someone who sings. But I do think that like I did kind of like leave out a lot of like theater performing aspects. There were like a lot more like musical aspects just because like that's where I have more first-hand experience in. But I really do like the general like vibe of the theater. I think a lot of my projects just start with vibe
Mm.
I'm really into. I think like what was really exciting for me with this book was that it was like my first time where I felt confident when I was writing. Because I think like I told you that I was like writing since like middle school or like even before then, but I think like especially because I was so young up to this point, I was writing a lot of like really weird, like kind of cringy stuff or like stuff that was like a little bit embarrassing that I didn't really want to show anybody. For a while in high school, yeah, and like for a while in high school, I like kind of wasn't reading as much. Like I was like doing a lot of just like schoolwork and I didn't really find it in me to like read books. But then after, because I was like reading a lot since I was a kid, and so I took like 2 years off of reading. But then the summer before, or
Mm.
like the summer in which I wrote Vaguely Human Figures, I got back into reading like a lot. So I was reading like every single day. So I think like at that time I saw my writing just like increase in like skill, like just like absolutely like skyrocketing. And up to that point, I felt like my writing was very juvenile. My prose was like not great. Like a lot of like the dialogue was like really awkward. But then I think like with this book, especially because like first like I was finally an adult. I was like not like a kid anymore. And also like I got back into reading and I was reading a lot of like classics. Like I guess like adult literature compared to like when I used to just read like teen fiction or like kid fiction when I was like a kid and a teen. And so I think just making that transition made me so excited to write. And like for the first time I was like putting words down on a page that I thought were like good. Like I was like writing this description of like this room or like this sea or whatever, and I was like, this is actually like quite good. Like I think the prose is like very strong here, and I've never felt like that before. And so just feeling that improvement was like really really thrilling. I really like writing about Mateo's like music process or like his like musical inclination. I get so many comments of people asking me like what genre is this book or like what age range is this book for, and I never know how to answer those questions because like I just don't really know like what genre to call this book. Like so I guess you could say like
Mhm.
fantasy, but then also it's like not fantasy and but it's not like completely
Mhm.
realistic either. And I think like something I told like another friend recently was that I wanted this book to be so that like the characters are so unreliable that the ghosts could or could not be real. Like that if the ghosts are real, then it could be a fantasy book, but if they're not real and it's just a hallucination, then it could be like a realistic book. So I wanted the genre to also be very like flux and like flexible with like how the reader interprets the characters. And so I would
Mm.
kind of want like readers or like aspiring writers to look at this as an example of like you don't have to like make a book be a certain type of way. You don't have to like fit a certain aesthetic or like a certain genre. Like you don't have to reduce your book to tropes. You don't have to like use popular like hashtags or like popular like terms to define your book. Especially like for like a debut or like a independent author. I think a lot of people assume that like you need to play it safe when you're like just starting out. And I think I want people to kind of be more open minded to like what books can be and like what books written by like young people or books written like by an independent author
Mm.
or books by like a debut author, books by like women or like what any of those things can be. Like I want people to be more open minded and like receptive to different types of stories. Like that's something that I've
Yeah.
been thinking a lot about is like what's the purpose of art, especially nowadays when everything is so like digitized and everything is so convenient. It's like what's the purpose of making art in this current world in 2025? And so like I want people to kind of be more open minded to like art itself and like art as like something that can structure lives and like give people purpose. I think all my stories are just like completely like character based. Like I don't really care like
Mm.
what happens in the book as long as I feel like I am in the character's head and I can see the world through their perspective.
Mm.
Like yes, like these are my characters, these are the things that they think and the ways that they experience life. And like, I mean, there is definitely a plot, like it is a very like plotty book at the end of the day, but I think everything was based on the characters and their development. I was thinking like, what do I need to put these people through? And I would really like to write about like somebody who I really want to write about like a city like as a character, just like entrenched in what that city is and not just have it be a place but almost like be like a character where like the reader can feel the setting like breathing and like existing on its own terms. And so yeah, like I really want to write an LA book. I think like every character has to start from a place that I relate to. Like for me, usually I kind of use that as like the seed. Like with my next project, I think the main character is very much like the struggle of the main character is very my struggle, like something that I've been thinking a lot about in my life.
Mm.
And I think from there, I just kind of start to like add on all these elements that I love. Because I think at the end of the day, like writing is kind of a way for me to like not really be me, like to be somebody else for like a little bit,
Mm.
but like make that somebody else someone that still deals with things that I'm dealing with just in a different world. And so I think like using one specific tension in my life and then kind of forming like the character around that, but then making the character have like unique characteristics, making them like have a different job or like a different appearance or live in a different time as than me. That
Mm.
really helps. I don't think I've ever written a character that was younger than me. Like when I was like 8, my characters were like 11. When I was like 15, they were like 18. When I was like 16, they're 20. Like
Mm.
I wrote this book when I was 18, and the characters are like all in their early 20s. And so I think like I always do tend to age them up a little bit and also make them like a different like appearance than me, or like from a different city, or like sometimes live in a different time frame, like different decade. And so it's like one thing that I relate to, like one struggle in my life is like the seed, and then like the things that grow out of that seed are sort of decorated with like things that are not me, just because like I think it's interesting to like live that way, or like they might have a job that I think is interesting, or they might have like they might live in like the 90s or whatever, like whatever thing that I'm obsessed with, like whatever like theme or like time or city or aesthetic that I love is just like slapped onto that, and so that's kind of how that becomes.
Um,
Yeah, I think the places where I tended to get stuck was kind of figuring out the logic behind like the whole like paranormal elements of the book, especially because I was really going back and forth between whether or not to make those paranormal elements real or like hallucinations. So, like as I said earlier,
mm.
at the end of the day, I decided that it would be up to the reader. Like, I feel like if somebody who wanted this to be a fantasy book read the book, they could be like, yeah, the ghosts are real. It is a fantasy book. Or like if someone really didn't want it to be a fantasy book, they could go into it with like, yes, all these characters are crazy and they're hallucinating because they're very unstable, and then just be like, yeah,
Okay.
it's not a fantasy book. And so I think figuring that out was really tough for me because my like beta readers were saying like we can't really figure out if they're real or not. And so like at that point I was kind of being like, do I really want this to be a paranormal book? Not really. But do I want it to be a realistic book? Also not really. So I decided to
Mm.
kind of leave that open ended. So I think going through the entire book and like choosing all the parts to make ambiguous was like kind of that was like a lot of work, and just like editing in general took a really long time. It was like almost, I think it was actually over a year of just like consistent efforts. Like I absolutely hate editing. Like I'm just like I love drafting. My drafts are so messy that I always have
Yeah.
to edit much longer than I have to draft. And so
Mm.
just editing was like a nightmare. Also just like trying to figure that out. Like what do I want this book to be? Trying to figure that out after I'd already written the book was like that was a big thing for me for sure. My future projects, like project ideas that I have, or like not specifically about like the details, but more so of like what's like kind of what's the theme, or like I like when people ask about themes and like the big
Mm.
ideas, like more so than like the plot or like the genre or the aesthetic or whatever, because I think that everything I write is so like based in my life and like I just take things like my personal struggles and I just like amplify them like times 100 just to make it like dramatic. And I think like a lot of people will just like ask me about like the I get a lot of logistical questions of like how do you like write a book? Like how do you like come up with a way to like consistently work on something? Like how do you plan your novel? How do you
Mm.
outline? How do you whatever? And it's like I appreciate that they ask me those types of questions, but also like I'm not like on here to be like a search engine. Like I'm not here to be like Google. Like I don't want to like
Yeah.
make tutorials. Like when I was younger, I used to post like writing prompts and stuff like online for like a little bit. But I was like, if I ever become like someone who posts about their writing online, I don't want to be like a writing tips account. I don't want to be a writing. I just kind of want to like maybe it's like a little bit selfish, but I do just want to like talk about my own projects. And I think like themes are a big part of that, and also to like I like when people don't try to reduce the things I write to genre or like to like things that make sense to the average reader. Like I like when people
Mm.
what are like the weird elements of your book? Like what are like the tiny things that you added intentionally that other people might be confused about? Like
Mm.
just stuff like that that's not just like, oh, what genre is it? Like what age range is it for? Like what is like what are the tropes? Like I also don't like when people ask about like is there like romance in your book? It's like I mean like not really in this one, maybe in like future books, but I feel like
Yeah.
everything all those like surface level elements exist to convey like a deeper message or like a deeper theme, and so I wish like more people ask me about like things like that beyond just like the technicalities of writing a book.
Was my favorite part of the ending. Made it all the more fun. Okay. Another person says, I love reading your work on Substacks. It's always so interesting to see the world from the perspective of an author outside their own stories. And someone says, agreed. Gina's thoughts on craft are super interesting.
Thank you. I
That's so
That's
sweet.
amazing to hear. Like I put so much effort into my Substack posts. Like you guys are reading those. Thank you.
Oh, that's so sweet. It's always nice to see people that like appreciate what you're doing out there
Mm.
because to you are looking at every single detail. So sometimes you might miss like what people are seeing and how it comes across. But I think, and a lot of people think that you're doing a great job. Your book definitely caught my eye right off the bat just by the cover alone. And I was like, I need to speak with you. Like, I need to pick your brain. I'm so glad you're able to make the time for this interview. Yeah, okay. Thank you so much. I hope you enjoy the rest of your day. I will be looking forward to your next book as well. And hopefully, once that comes out, we can have another talk and just, get into it.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. This is so much fun.
Yeah. All right. Bye. Thank you to everyone for joining as well.
Thank you so much for watching.